Rollo, Huberman recently did an episode on emotional intelligence. It's good. What's your opinion on a delay of gratification? Would you like to know? Some are better at it than others are at it. Yeah. Okay. So first off, that might be a genetic thing. So I don't know how I would like wedge that into like big five personality traits. But like if you go and if you look at the 4 laws of behavioral genetics, there's probably a DNA chain, or there's probably a combination of genetics that would predispose.
Oh, one of the cameras went out.
Yeah, it's probably too hot. That would predispose a guy to be more self-controlled than others, right? Also environments too. So for instance, because here's another example of this. Guys will always say, well, the girls in my country, they're not hypergamous. No, they are. They're just not allowed to express that hypergamy because of the conditions of your country, or your ethnicity, or your religion, or how you just basically do things in your culture, right? They're just as hypergamous as anyone else. Does that mean that they're exercising self-restraint? Yeah, up until the point where they don't have to anymore, which is essentially, if you think about it, what we did in the United States for a long time, right? Up until we had hormonal birth control and the sexual revolution that came as the cultural response to that. Up until that point, we had a much different social attitudes towards sex, towards reproduction, towards family creation. We had a much different attitude and a much different way of thinking about things. And people say, well, women were oppressed, they were owned, they were treated like cattle. No, they weren't. It's just that women couldn't express their hypergamy in the same way that they do now, because the culture has changed as a result of an invention, which was hormonal birth control, right? So now that all of those restraints are off, we have unfettered hypergamy. Now we see what women's real nature really is when we take away those restraints. So you can say, well, what in my country, I live in Iran, Rollo, and the women are different here, and they wear, they're much more modest than everything else. I said, take away those cultural restraints, and you see how fucking modest those chicks are. And it's not because of men not living up to their fucking expectations. If men were better, women would be better. No, pull those restraints away, and you will see exactly what their nature really is. And it's like passport bros. They always tell you, never leave the country where you find the chick, because you bring her back to the United States, where those restraints and those restrictions don't apply anymore. Guess what? They revert back to that's what you get when you have unfettered hypergamy. That's why you will lose that bitch in the United States, and you keep her in the Philippines. It's a much different story. There's way more respect in the Philippines than there is in the United States. And shout out to Filipina P, who I love. She's my Filipina sister wife. She's so funny. God, that chick is. I don't even really watch a full show. I only watch like the clips of her stuff. It's funny as shit, though. I do like her. I'm not goofing on her. I think she's pretty great. So emotional intelligence is bullshit. Would you like me to tell you why it's bullshit? Okay. So I guess we need to go through this one again. Let's just do this. Emotional intelligence is bullshit. Is fake. Is bullshit. Boy, there's a lot of returns on that. Do you think emotional intelligence is made up? Yes. Emotional intelligence is actually a thing, right? It turns out that emotional intelligence can indeed be measured as a set of mental abilities, and that is doing an informative exercise, but it's not a cognitive skill. So it doesn't really meet, because it's emotion. I don't know how many different ways I have to say this, right? Let's see. Let's see what else here. Why is emotional intelligence an illegitimate concept? Is EQ scientifically proven? Let's see. Intellectual foolishness. I think this might have been it. The intellectual foolishness of the term emotional intelligence. Well, there's so much. Again, this is just, it might be because I'm looking for, I'm getting exactly what I'm looking for. Okay. But the thing is like, according to my very, I should say minimal research, emotional intelligence, the reason why I'm of the opinion that emotional intelligence is kind of like astrology. It's like chick speak. It's because it takes emotion and it puts it into it takes the emotive qualities, let's just say, and puts them into empirical, or attempts to put them into empirical contexts, right? So, but the problem is like emotion is something that is malleable. As I said before, like I think I brought this up on Access Vegas with some of the girls one time. I said, I can change your emotional state by putting 2 shots of tequila in. Is that, are you really feeling like love and lust for me because you just took 2 shots of Jose Cuervo and now you can't get enough of me? Whereas before those 2 shots, you thought I was cringing, old, and a piece of shit, right? Doesn't sound like emotional intelligence, right? No, what it sounds like to me is like emotion is a process by which human beings process their surroundings. Okay, how do I feel about this? And usually when people are talking about emotional intelligence, they're talking about interpreting and understanding emotive states. So autistic people cannot understand most of them cannot, depending on where you are on the spectrum, cannot read emotive states from other people. Like if you see, I think this is getting worse too, by the way, because we have such a minimal ability with what do you call it, with social media today, to see what the other person is saying. When I text something on Twitter, you don't see my facial expressions unless I do a video, right? You don't hear my vocal intonations. You don't see me like, I could be like this while I'm writing something down, or I could just be totally casual. Well, one of them is an emotional state. One of them is not. But the thing is you're never going to get that through a block of text. Okay. Unless I like write in certain ways that seem kind of like out of the ordinary. But the thing is like understanding emotional states, that's a cognitive process. That is something that has to be learned. It is something that has to be conditioned. That's why I say I think that we're coming into an era right now where a lot of guys who might seem autistic, they're not actually autistic. They just haven't had enough experience live in real time with real fucking human beings to understand emotive states. Does that mean they're low on emotional intelligence? No, it doesn't. It just means they're low on cognitive intelligence that happens to do with emotive states. So being able to understand what people are feeling by looking at the cues, by looking at body language, by listening to vocal intonations, by where their eyes are. Their eyes could be dilated. Are they crying? Are they screaming? Or are they just totally monotone and not really, don't really care, right? Or what is happy, what is sad, right? Those things, it's an ability to understand emotions is a cognitive process. It is not an emotional process. Emotions are what you're feeling about whatever the stimuli that's coming into your fucking brain is. And by the way, the whole thing about emotional intelligence, all of this was developed in the early 90s by female psychologists. So we could make men more and more like stunted children because they don't emote and they don't understand. Women are superior at emotional intelligence because that's just how we are. And there might be something to that. Like women tend to prioritize feels before reals, which is why we're in such a shit state that we are right now. When it comes to politics, when it comes to we were just the first question we had. How do we fight the liberals? How do we fight the leftists? Right? Well, here's what we do. You want to know the first step? The first step is we put reals before fucking feels. And for me to say that sounds like I'm angry. It sounds like I'm hateful. Oh, follow your heart. It'll never fucking lead you astray. Me and August Alsina had an entanglement, Stop it with the emotional speak, right? It's not emotional intelligence. It's a fucking cover up is what it is,
Lack of accountability.
And has been for quite some time. So the jury is definitely out on emotional intelligence, and that's me giving you a little bit.